Hashimoto's is a disease many people face for years without even knowing it. If you haven't felt like yourself and can't seem to figure out why, well, you need to stay tuned and learn all about Hashimoto's and low thyroid disease today on The Younger You.
I'm on top of the world, now I'm living, and the good just gets better, keeps on giving. Not even close to the end, it's just beginning. Life is getting lighter while the days are getting brighter, yeah. And it's a good, I won't even worry anymore. Took all my cares, still can kick them all out the door. Go on and try, come and tell me what you're waiting for. Move and keep them going till your life is overflowing, yeah.
Welcome to The Younger You. Today we're talking all about low thyroid. Did you know that this disease affects 14 million people in the United States alone, and it's the most common thyroid disorder? Well, I want to introduce you to Dr. Red, a man that knows all about low thyroid disease. Welcome, Dr. Red. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Okay, first thing, what is low thyroid?
Okay, this is when your thyroid is not producing the proper life-sustaining thyroid hormones that your body needs. And this is important because every cell in your body has a thyroid hormone receptor. And so it's needed throughout all the different functions of your body.
What are the symptoms of a low thyroid?
There's a lot of different symptoms, but some of the main ones will be fatigue, depression, inability to lose weight. They might have hair loss. You might see people with intestinal problems and swelling in the extremities.
Dr. Red, we talked about some of the symptoms just then, but what causes low thyroid?
Yeah, the most common cause is an immune problem. It's called Hashimoto's disease.
Isn't that just a word that we throw around?
Yes, so this is where your immune system, instead of attacking bad things like it should to help with viruses and illnesses and all that stuff as well, it starts attacking the thyroid tissue. It actually thinks the thyroid is bad tissue. And so your immune system starts destroying the thyroid tissue to get rid of it, and eventually causes a permanent low thyroid condition. And so people will get on a thyroid hormone, but nothing's being done to the actual autoimmune condition, and that's why we end up having patients with problems even on a thyroid hormone.
Why are so many people affected with it nowadays when we didn't really hear about it 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think
or it was always there,
sure.
we just didn't know what it was.
I think nowadays we have this like constant high-stress life, and our food is now genetically modified and structurally engineered, right? It's not even real food right now. So, and that's causing a slew of different problems too. They're just increasing the quantity of our food, but by doing that, they're decreasing the quality. And so I think because of a mixture of stress, quality of food, you know, that causes
everyday life.
Yeah, now we're seeing autoimmune conditions just increase tenfold over the last 20, 30 years.
Okay, for all the viewers at home, is there a difference between low thyroid and Hashimoto's? Yeah,
there'll be some people that have a primarily low thyroid, and that's just where the thyroid gland itself just isn't producing thyroid hormones, right?
Okay.
But that's very rare in America. The majority, in fact, anywhere from 70 to 80% of these patients suffering with low thyroid have the autoimmune condition Hashimoto's. And so because that immune system is thinking that the thyroid is a bad thing, eventually it destroys it, and that's what causes the low thyroid.
All right, Dr. Red, thank you so much for answering some of those questions for me. But I want to take a moment to take a look at one of Dr. Red's patients to hear about their story and what it's like living with low thyroid. Take a look.
My name is Holly Aiken. I'm 28 years old. So when I was about 14, I started getting really sick. It was so bad, I mean, I couldn't even get out of bed in the morning. I couldn't wake up, and I was just sick all the time. If there was anything going around, I would get it. And so we went to doctor after doctor trying to figure out what was going on, because I knew something was wrong other than just mono that wasn't going away. So I finally received a hypothyroidism diagnosis, and I thought, okay, great. I know I have hypothyroidism, and they said I had chronic fatigue syndrome. So I thought, okay, I have my answer and I can just focus on that. They put me on medication and I was better for a while, and then I just went right back to where I was. And so I went to doctors saying I have hypothyroidism, but I still don't feel good and something's still wrong. So maybe my meds are off or something is wrong that way. And they would check my levels and say, well, you're fine. You're good, your levels are good, you're fine. And that was so frustrating to me because I knew I wasn't fine and I wasn't making it up, but doctor after doctor just kept saying, you're fine, you're good, your levels are good, nothing we can do. And I did that for about 15 years. I was never happy. And for me, that's not who I am. If you talk to anybody who knows me, I'm normally a happy, upbeat person, but because I was so sick, everything else just went away, and I just had to do the bare minimum to survive. I was overweight, I was tired all the time. When last year was probably the worst year of my life, I was depressed. I would wake up in the morning just sick, not feeling good. And when I woke up in the morning, all I could do was say, just make it through your 8 hours of work and you can come home and sleep. And for me, that was really depressing because I'm 28 years old and that's no way to live.
After the break, let's head over to Red River Health and Wellness Clinic to find out what it's all about. Let's check in with Dr. Red to find out what it's like for his patients at the Red River Clinic.
Hey guys, I'm here at the Red River Health and Wellness Center, and I'm here to talk about what we do and how we help patients. So the biggest thing that we want to focus on when somebody walks into our office is to try to identify the underlying mechanisms that most doctors have missed up to that point. Lots of patients who see us are struggling so much and really have lost hope by the time they see us.
It was so frustrating to go to doctor after doctor after doctor and have them tell you, oh, you're fine, nothing's wrong with you. It made me feel crazy. It made me feel like I was making it up, or was I looking for attention? It just made me feel like they thought I was crazy or that I was just seeking attention, which I wasn't. There was something wrong with me and I needed help, and nobody had answers for me.
Our biggest goal is when somebody comes in to help them understand what's truly going on with their condition. And in this case, we want to focus on the actual autoimmune response, not just the thyroid, right? Because these patients are not suffering from a primary thyroid problem, they're suffering from an immune condition. And so we have to identify what are the triggers that are going to cause this immune response to flare up and destroy more thyroid tissue. And so the first step that we take is we want to take a detailed history and really understand what's causing this patient's problem. We might sit here and talk for 30 minutes to an hour and try to identify what are some common symptoms, what are some common problems that this patient might have that's causing this patient to feel bad. And then once we really identify what's going on with the patient, our goal is to do a really extensive blood test. And in this case, way more extensive than these patients have ever had. We really look through thoroughly to try to identify what's causing this patient's problem through the blood work.
I took some of my old blood work that I had done with other doctors that they couldn't make sense of, or that they just kept telling me the same things over and over and over again.
So I think the biggest thing for us before we do blood work is to really take a very key history on the patient and really understand what the patient's going through. And this might take 30 minutes to an hour, trying to identify what's really been going on in this patient's life, what are some potential problems and issues these patients are struggling with, and then once we're able to identify what those are, then we'll typically send them off to get blood work done. When we send patients out to do blood work, we don't just want to do simple panels. Our biggest focus is to really try to uncover what are these patients' problems. And so we'll do a very extensive panel to try to identify what are the triggers that are causing the autoimmune response to flare up. A lot of our patients don't even know they have an autoimmune condition. And so when somebody comes in suffering with thyroid problems, that's kind of our first step, is to see, okay, what is causing the thyroid problem to begin with? And then what can we do once we identify the cause to really help this patient feel better?
Typical doctors, you go to the doctor and they just focus on that one symptom or that one problem. Red River really focused on my body as a whole. They looked at, how everything works together and how food and nutrition affect the body and how it affects your organs, and they just look at your body as a whole functioning, working person instead of just one little piece of the puzzle.
Our biggest focus here is to not treat these patients the exact same. We want to be very specific to their individual needs, and so we might have one autoimmune patient that has a total different amount of physiological problems and lifestyle and dietary things that cause it to flare up, whereas we might have the next patient, who could even be a family member, have different things that cause it to flare up too. And then we might have patients with just food intolerances, or we might have a patient with blood sugar level imbalances. And those patients have to be treated accordingly. And so making sure that we're not treating them like a protocol, but that we're really being specific to their individual needs is the key for what we do here. These patients are struggling, feel hopeless, and feel like nobody knows what's going on with their condition. And so the biggest thing we want to focus on is to really identify what's truly causing this patient's problem.
I just cried because I had looked for so long and I had been sick for so long that to finally have somebody validate me and what I was going through and the sickness and the illness that I was experiencing was amazing. It was incredible. I just broke down in tears. I was so grateful.
When it comes to thyroid problems, most of our patients that come in here have no idea what's causing the thyroid problem to begin with. And so their whole paradigm is going to be dramatically shifted once they see us. When a patient for 20 years has been treated like they have a primary thyroid problem, and then all of a sudden realize, holy smokes, my immune system has been the one that's destroying my thyroid this whole time and has been creating other symptoms and problems, this can make a dramatic impact on these patients' health just by simply knowing what's causing the problem.
I became very, I just didn't care. I just didn't have any desire to engage with people. I didn't have any desire to, I was just living just to survive. I would wake up in the morning, just get to work, do your job so you can survive and come home. So it was so comforting to me to know that, okay, I do have something beyond just what I was experiencing before. So they were wonderful. It was the best decision I ever made.
When we come back, Dr. Red and I will be in the kitchen discussing which foods are good for patients with Hashimoto's and which are bad. Closed captioning for The Younger You is brought to you by Mindful Medical. Looking for the perfect beauty product? Each week, The Younger You highlights a standout product in the health and beauty industry. Head over to theyoungeryou.tv and check it out. Love to hear your comments. Well, Dr. Red, we're here in the kitchen talking about the good and the bad foods when it comes to low thyroid, which leads to Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Definitely.
All right. I thought it all looked pretty good. But you're telling me there's some bad stuff in here.
There are some bad stuff in here, so we got to be careful.
Let's start right down here, starting with the milk. I could drink milk out of the container like no tomorrow.
Definitely.
Love it.
What we're finding out with milk is that it actually has a protein found in there called casein, which will flare up the autoimmunity. Okay?
Oh, really?
So now it's not specific towards every patient, but for a lot of our patients, dairy ends up being a problem.
Okay, so how do you feel about, soya milk or almond milk, rice milk?
So almond milk is great, coconut milk is great. Soy milk, which we have here, increases estrogen, which will end up flaring up the autoimmune response as well. And so soy can be, yeah.
I think when you see organic for anything, I'm sure most people do at home as well, think, I can eat as much of that as I want.
Yeah, unfortunately with soy we can't because it increases estrogen in our bodies. And so too high of estrogen flares up the autoimmune response.
All right, look, I love eggplant. Are you telling me it's a bad or a good thing?
No, you can have eggplant. That's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Some things that we don't see a lot of, and our producer picked them up from the supermarket, horned fruit or horned melon and dragon
fruit.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't even know what they taste like.
But you
Are
can
they
eat
good
them.
for you?
They're good for you, yeah, absolutely. You can eat
Lots
them.
of vitamins and minerals.
Yeah, the biggest thing with fruit, though, we have to be careful of is just not eating too much, okay? So we'll have patients that will eat a bunch of fruit at one time. That will increase insulin in our body, and an insulin surge will flare up that immune response as well. So you can have fruit, you just have to be cautious on eating, moderate amounts of fruit.
Okay, look, this all looks pretty good to me. Point out some bad ones, because I'm sitting here thinking, what's he going on about? It all looks good to me.
So fruits and veggies are great, but we have bread right here.
Do you know how much I want to break that off and eat it right now?
Let's see it right now.
No,
But
no, because I know you'll knock it over my head.
Yeah, I will. I'll knock it right out of your hand. But so anyone suffering with Hashimoto's, we're finding out now gluten plays a big role in flaring up the autoimmune response, almost as closely linked to celiac disease as well. So if you have Hashimoto's, there's likelihood that gluten could be like a rat poison for you.
Really?
Yeah, definitely.
What about wholemeal?
What's that?
What about wholemeal
The
bread?
more whole wheat you go, the more gluten it has too, so the worse it's going to be for you. So,
serious? But we're told wholemeal is better
I know.
for us.
Unfortunately,
But
what
not
happens?
for Hashimoto's people.
What happens now is the gluten molecule is very similar to that of the thyroid molecule, and so what happens when they eat the gluten molecule, the autoimmune response will think it's a thyroid molecule and attack it and,
So I
and
should
cause
throw
it to
out my
flare up.
wholemeal bread that I've got in the fridge?
Unfortunately, no,
Okay.
because you don't have
I'll have it with my
Hashimoto's. You don't have
Vegemite, though.
Hashimoto's. You don't have to worry about it.
Good. Fruit, simple.
Yeah.
But like you said, don't eat
Just
too
don't
much.
eat too much.
In moderation.
Moderate amounts of fruit.
Okay. Curry powder?
Turmeric.
Turmeric. See, I'd think that was curry powder.
Turmeric is one of the, we'll give our patients high dosages of turmeric, and that significantly decreases inflammatory cytokines, decreases that immune
I have
response.
heard that if you put lots of turmeric in your salads and cooking, it's one of the best herbs that you can use.
It's phenomenal for patients suffering with an autoimmune condition.
Okay, because I noticed I've asked you to give me a layout of what you do for people's diets, and you actually do a lot of herbs and spices in there as well. Lots of turmeric.
Lots of stuff, yep.
Okay,
Yep.
The little pills beside it, I can't see what they are.
Resveratrol, very similar to turmeric.
Okay.
Decreases the inflammatory cytokines, decreases the bad things that cause the autoimmune response to flare up. It's a great overall, general supplement.
All right, salt grills, girls, what is it, grills or girls?
Salt.
Salt, it's just normal salt.
Iodized salt. Here's the
Okay.
problem. Iodine for patients suffering with Hashimoto's is a huge problem. Most people think that iodine is great for the thyroid, but actually the research shows the opposite if you have Hashimoto's, which most people do. So,
all right, we're going to list all the bad things from here on our website. I think it's really important to do that, don't you think?
That's right.
And also the good things, but
Yeah,
we've
write
got
the
to
good
put the
things.
bad stuff on it. Thanks, Dr. Red. It can be difficult to cut out bad foods from our diets, but for someone suffering from Hashimoto's,
yes, it's absolutely necessary. Let's find out from our patient how it's been eliminating certain foods from their diet.
take a look.
At first it was a learning process. Every day I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I try to snack in between, and I just take my regular thyroid meds, and it's a lot easier now, now that I've got the hang of it. And it's really just watching what I eat, making sure I'm not eating things that will cause flare-ups, and making sure that I'm exercising and just taking care of myself. And then if I do have a flare-up, if I do eat something that causes me to have a flare-up, then I've been given the tools to take care of that. I just drink extra water, increase my vitamin D, and just make sure I don't eat that food again. So it's a 6-month program is how they catered it for me. It's a 6-month program, and you go more often at the beginning just because you're learning and you're trying to figure out, and all the blood work and all the blood tests. It was about twice a week at the beginning, and then it went down to once a week.
Coming up after the break, we'll be back in the studio to find out what Dr. Red does to help his patients live a better and healthier life. Like us on Facebook for updates on the show and how to join the Younger You conversation. Will someone with Hashimoto's have to visit Dr. Red for the rest of their lives? Let's find out. Dr. Red, we actually have viewers that write in questions to us. And I want to ask you a question from one of our viewers. It says, Dr. Red, why is it that some people, including myself, on thyroid hormones still feel little to no improvement?
Well, I think the biggest reason why is because we're not getting to the mechanism of why you have low thyroid to begin with, right? And this is important for every single one of us to know. And so it's important to do the proper test to identify what's really causing your specific low thyroid. And that can be a myriad of different things.
All right, well, what are you doing to help people?
Well, the biggest thing is, like I just said, we're finding out what the mechanism of these patients' low thyroid is. Now, most of the time it is Hashimoto's, and in those cases we're dealing with an immune problem, not a primary low thyroid problem. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we're not just focused on the thyroid. In fact, we take everything we know about thyroid problems and we forget about it, because this patient is not suffering from a primary thyroid problem, they're suffering from an immune problem. And so we have to identify what's going on with the immune system in order to get things to calm down there.
So are you telling me it's a non-curable disease?
You can't cure this, no. In fact, the biggest thing
Because of
is...
what you were explaining, I'm thinking it's a life decision and change.
Definitely. We have to really teach these patients on how to calm down the autoimmune response. And now we want to basically help them be the expert of their own health, right? We want to teach them the tools so that they can know how to keep things in check for the rest of their lives, right?
Okay. Another question from one of our viewers. Dr. Ed, a lot of people have all the thyroid symptoms, but the tests come back normal. And I've heard you talk about that before. Is there anything else that would cause somebody to feel like they have a low thyroid? That's a good question.
Yeah, there's something called a protein binding problem. That's where the thyroid hormones don't get distributed throughout the body efficiently. There's also something called an underconversion problem of the thyroid. And this is really common because what happens is your thyroid produces T4 hormones, and these are inactive T4 hormones. Your body has to convert it into an active T3 hormone so it can be used. What happens is they have this problem where that T4 hormone is not being converted into an active T3 hormone.
Okay.
And so they can have all those thyroid symptoms and problems too. And this is typically due to stress, cortisol defects, and inflammatory issues.
All right, interesting. But one more question. I'm 63 years of age. Does weight, gender, or anything like that affect the way you treat someone?
You know, if we're treating somebody small, like a child, that's going to differ how we treat an older person with hormones that are fluctuating and changing. And so, absolutely.
Dr. Reid, some great questions from our clients, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Okay, before we wrap up the show, I want to check back in with our patient to find out how much their treatment has truly changed their life. Take a look.
It was so comforting to me to know that, okay, I do have something beyond just what I was experiencing before. I started in January, and I've lost 62 pounds. I'm no longer pre-diabetic. I'm no longer anemic. My sex hormones are functioning properly, which they weren't before. My hair, my skin, my nails are all so much better. Everything, my whole life is better. My mental health is better. I remember driving in the car like probably 3 months after I started the program, and a song came on the radio and I was happy, and I remember distinctly just that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm happy, and I hadn't felt that in a long time. It's amazing to me because I didn't realize how sick I was before until I started getting better, until I started seeing those improvements in my life. I started dating again, and I recently got engaged, like last week. So I'm engaged to be married, and life is just awesome. It's really awesome. My health is great, and I'm happy. I have submitted and written a children's book. I'm starting a website and mobile application, and life is amazing. I'm happy, I'm getting married, the possibility of having children. Life is awesome. It's rockin' awesome.
Dr. Red, before we go, any last thoughts for people sitting at home? They go, I've got low thyroid. What are you telling them to do?
Yeah, I would say don't wait, right? Pick up the phone and find someone that's going to help you.
Call the doctor. Call the man. Thank you very much. Although Hashimoto's can be a hard disease to diagnose, with the right tests and lifestyle changes, Hashimoto's can be managed. If you think you may have any of the symptoms discussed today, find out more on the website at theyoungeryou.tv, where you can always catch up on previous episodes, find great products, and learn all about the ways you can become the younger you. I'll see you next week. Coming up on The Younger You, we'll take a look into the world of injectables and see what different injectable fillers can do for you. The Younger You set provided by Madison McCord Interiors.